Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news as we talk about, yes, again, the bidding situation for Manchester United as it hots up. And I believe from many reports that we are actually looking at a two-horse race here. We're looking at Sir Jim Radcliffe or Qatar to buy Manchester United. There may well be an outside bet. There may well be somebody that comes through quietly in the last week or so. But ultimately, at the moment, it almost is that poll situation, which I find ridiculous. I don't really know how people can vote for this. And we'll get into that on the show this morning. We're also going to talk about Wout Weghorst. And is that already becoming a problem for Ten Hag? Looks like he'll be dropped against Leeds at the weekend. Manchester United share price, the highest it's been, I think, ever. Certainly the highest it's been in a long, long time. But the big story this morning is that, you know, you read the reports, you listen to people what saying, you've got messages coming through. It's a week away until the soft deadline. A week today, Man United's deadline for bids is in. They might move that back, but effectively they've put that deadline there. And a week out, it is Sir Jim Radcliffe against the Qatar bid. That's where we're at with this. And I think, I could do a poll in the chat. I think I know what will happen. It will be Qatar money that comes out because that's what we did the other day. But I think that the concerns that are around both bids are just not knowing. And I mean, look, let's go through some of the headlines that are coming out this morning. We've got a few here that might be of interest, and I'm sure we can discuss them. But there are concerns. There are concerns, first of all, around the offer that Sir Jim Radcliffe might make. This is coming in from the Telegraph last night. Sir Jim Radcliffe will fight it out with private Qatari investors and US consortiums for Manchester United, having secured two of Wall Street's biggest lenders to bankroll his deal. Well, this is going to concern people straight away. Sir Jim Radcliffe has given the strongest indication yet that his funding is in place, working with two prolific investment banks for several weeks. They're prepared to back his offer for Man United with bonds and loans beyond the value of £650 million. Well, this is going to terrify United fans straight away. The whole I want Sir Jim because he's English, he's from the area and he's a Man United fan is fantastic. It's idealistic. It could be brilliant. But as soon as you start hearing about being bankrolled by JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley, or whatever they're called, you start to think, well, straight away, that's a red flag, like Taylor says. Now, in the world of business, it's not unusual. If you buy your house, you probably take a mortgage out. In the world of business, it's not unusual to, leverage what you're doing by taking a loan rather than using your own money. That's not unusual. But the red flag for me is not the fact that, he might be borrowing money in some shape or form, and he's probably borrowing the money himself. I don't think he'd be borrowing it against Manchester United. But even if somebody is borrowing the money to buy Manchester United, you're still borrowing the money and you've still got to pay it back. And, maybe that financial institution is saying, look, we're more than happy to give you 650 million quid because we know the money you're going to make from Man United, you'll be able to pay us back. But there's the thing, isn't it? I heard somebody say this morning, but that financial institution probably don't really care about loaning the money because they know they'll get it back because United are going to make loads of money. But that money that Man United are going to make is still going to go back to them, isn't it? It's an investor. At the cold, harsh rock face of this is, whoever the financial institutions are that are bankrolling Sir Jim Radcliffe, they're just investors wanting their money back. And I don't want that sort of Manchester United ownership model. And it might be a fantasy. I might be living in a dreamland. But I don't want any consortium investors involved in Man United who want money back. Yeah, we'll give you 650 million because you'll be giving us $1 billion back at some point. You still got to pay it back. And I don't think people understand that. They're like, well, the debt won't be against Man United. So if I buy a business and I don't use those business to pay, I don't put the loan against the business, the profits of the business are still going to come to me to pay the loan back that I've got. I don't like it. I don't like it, and I don't like it. But everybody who's trying to buy Man United might do this. It's business. It might happen. It is a bit of a red flag. On the other hand, of course, you've got to acknowledge the fact that there are big concerns around Qatar. I mean, I read something this morning from Laurie Whitwell. He was saying that in The Athletic that Merchant Bank Rain's first deadline for bids is a week today. Sources with knowledge of the situation say an offer from the Gulf state is a genuine possibility, but there is uncertainty as to whether that would result in a full takeover. There is also the prospect of the Qatari investment fund, or whatever it's called, creating a structure to satisfy Europe's ruling body about separation, in the same way Red Bull managed to do it with Leipzig and Salzburg, so they can face each other. Also from the Athletic, Qatar's Emir Tamim Al Thani has decided that countries should enter the most popular football league in the world. He's worth a staggering 335 billion. It's just, you know what? We've got no say in this, and yet it's the biggest thing that's going to happen to you as an individual United fan in 20 years. We are going to have new owners in some shape or form. There's still an outside chance it could be investment. I don't know who anywhere in the world would think it was a good idea to keep the Glazers in place and let's carry on with Richard Arnold and John Murtaugh and the same old shit. I can't see anybody wanting to bankroll that, but you just don't know. I think we've got a very idealistic opportunity with Sir Jim Radcliffe, and I wouldn't be against it. But I think it also is a situation that is concerning, because I don't think he's got the money. I really don't think he's got the money. And people will say, well, Ineos is worth this. Ineos has shareholders. They're not Sir Jim Radcliffe. It's about the structure, says Mr. Tony. It is. Ultimately, I personally will keep reiterating what I keep saying. I can't judge Man United's owners until we know who they are and what their plan is. Somebody messaged me today and said, they built a lot of stadiums in Qatar for that World Cup. Do you think they built them for the one-off World Cup, or do you think they're planning to use them as stadiums for games in the future where it's a Super League and you take teams over there? I don't know what the plan is. The reality is that the future plan of football could be a very depressing one. It could be a very exciting one at Manchester United, and we don't make we won't make the decision, and that's the scary thing. It's massively exciting, but it's massively scary as well. We won't make the decision. The Glazers will, and ultimately the Glazers will be driven by the price. Now I don't know whether you saw this morning. The Manchester United share price is the biggest price it's ever been, apparently. That's because of the sale. People are buying, shares. It's knocking the price up because people are anticipating this big sale and everything like that. But that, therefore, strengthens the Glazers' position to say, we want a certain price. We want 6 billion now. It's going to look. We're in the end game. I said it on Twitter. This is the end game for Manchester United fans. We are in the end game. We're about to start finding out what's going to happen. And in some ways, we're completely tight. We're completely powerless. But in the other ways, you're completely gripped about what's going to happen. Telegraph goes on to say, look, there's a lot of slow sports news this morning. I've seen a lot of articles and stuff about bidding wars, and we spoke about it at 7 o'clock last night. It's just regurgitation. It's moved on. The story at the moment, the big story this morning, is it's Sir Jim versus Qatar. I don't know how many people are writing articles on that and doing videos on that, but the reality is that the breaking news this morning, and you normally get it on the United Stand because we've got a great community. We've moved on plus 5 teams and 5 bidders and bidding war. That was last night's story. This morning's story is it's basically Sir Jim against Qatar, because they're the two identifiable, most serious people considering a bid. Tell me what's the best one to go with there. Blindly, I won't vote blindly. So that's where I'm at. The Telegraph does go on to say at least 4 serious contenders to buy Man United have emerged ahead of a soft February deadline. We don't know who the other two are. A high-powered Qatari individual and other wealthy investors are seriously considering an offer to buy Man United, and it's independent of the PSG ownership. It is understood that the Saudis have twice... So this is not Qatar. This is Saudi now. This is Newcastle. It is understood that Saudis have twice explored the prospect of a full takeover of Man United in the past. Sources say that on those occasions, the Glazers were only ever open to selling a 20% stake in the club, and so the situation never advanced. Obviously, Saudi, they own Newcastle now, so I don't know if anything will happen with that. We're still scratching around to see if there are any other genuine public expressions of interest for Manchester United. And I think that, personally, my feeling is that although it is Sir Jim versus Qatar and they seem the most serious bids at this moment in time, I actually think that there's probably a couple of silent people trying to buy Man United. I was always told, and I wouldn't be surprised if this comes out, that the Glazers had a buyer lined up. They had a buyer lined up when the story came out in November. They had a buyer ready to buy Man United, and what they did is they went, well, yeah, that offer's there, but we want to go public and see if a better offer comes in, and that is probably what's going to happen. The buyer that was already there is believed to be an American consortium, and that American consortium, quite wisely, will not go public because, obviously, unfairly or not, you look at what Chelsea's American ownership has done, and it's very, very, ambitious. But I think because of the Glazers, I think quite rightly, any American consortium will not want to be publicly attached to Manchester United because there'll be outrage, there'll be uproar, people will be moaning, we don't want that because it's American. Which, to be honest with you, I don't disagree. I don't agree with. I don't think you can stereotypically say we don't want American ownership of Manchester United just because of the Glazers. That's ridiculous. It's like saying. It's like being in, one of the best Italian restaurants in London and saying, I don't want your lasagna because I had a £1 value one that you put in a microwave from Tesco last week and it was horrible. It's ridiculous. You can't judge one American against, a load of other Americans. But I think there is a consortium of American people who want to buy Manchester United who are just keeping it quiet and are going to bid quietly and don't want it publicly out there. So I think that takes it up to 3. But ultimately, publicly, we are in this position this morning where it is Sir Jim Radcliffe against Qatar. Qatar are genuinely trying to find a way to buy Man United. They've certainly got the wealth. Sir Jim Radcliffe is genuinely, as a Man United fan and a lover of football and a lover of Manchester United, is genuinely trying to find a way to buy Manchester United. Both of them will be better owners than the Glazers, and I think this is something that we need to consider. I'm sort of a position like many of you. Shafi says, what do you think can be changed at Manchester United? I think in this situation, you have to assess it like this. You can't sit... look, let's do a poll. Because, people are saying, can you do it? But let's go. Which owner? Why do I always have caps lock on? Which owner? I'm sure you're the same as me. You start typing and it's in bloody lowercase and then... Yeah, you know what I mean. So, there you go. Get in the chat there. Right, okay. Honestly, you cannot, in no shape or form, you cannot tell me what's right for Man United, Sir Jim or Qatar. They both might be right, they both might be wrong. There is nobody that can sit there and tell me that Goldbridge, you should be wanting Qatar ownership, or Goldbridge, you should be wanting Sir Jim Radcliffe because he's a local fan. You can't tell me those things and I won't listen because you can't tell me what's behind Sir Jim Radcliffe's bid and what his intentions are, and you can't tell me what's behind Qatar's bid and what their intention are. Nobody can. So I can't vote because I can't tell you what's better. But what I can tell you is we're all in that position where we want to know what's better. We want to know because because then you want that bid to be successful. You want it to be the one that the Glazers accept. But we're not party to that information. It's not like Chelsea where it was very public who was bidding and what their intentions were. We're not party to it. We've got no say in it. We're basically powerless. But what we can do is we can try and find the positives and say, is Qatar better than the Glazers? Well, I think it is. Is Sir Jim Radcliffe better than the Glazers? Yes. Because he's got the best interest of the club at heart. His ideals and ideas and ways of doing it might not be palatable to some of us, but he's still got the best intentions and he is a fan of the club. Qatar, look, many people may well be against that, but they're wealthy and they will spend money on the club. So they're both better than the Glazers, who are the worst of both. The Glazers have the money but took it out of the club and they're not fans. So both those bids would be better than what Manchester United are offering, than what the Glazers are offering. But both those bids may not lead to Manchester United being successful in the future for different reasons. And we may go down a path where people don't like it. As I said yesterday, it's an exciting sign, but it's also a scary one. Is Ten Hag's presser live or pre-recorded later today, says Tyler? I believe it's live. We'll be covering the press conference for you, don't worry, and we've got the preview coming up for you later as well. Sir Jim would bring in the Super League for his paymasters, JP Morgan, says Manchester. That is a comment. That is almost comment of the morning. It really is an interesting comment because that is something that JP Morgan... And we are talking so much about finance around football at the moment. I just can't wait to play Leeds on Sunday so we can play some bloody football. But the Super League is back on the agenda. I did a video on That's Football about it yesterday. JP Morgan were going to bankroll And Evie says, finally someone said it. Look, we won't hide away from stuff here. This is about what's best for the football club. There are people out there going, I want Sir Jim because he's a local lad. Oh, he's one of us. There's people saying, I want Qatar, oil me up because they're loaded. Neither of those people are right. Neither of those people are wrong. But JP Morgan were bankrolling the Super League. That was reported at the time of the Super League. They were bankrolling it to quite a lot of money. They're now involved in bankrolling Sir Jim Radcliffe, according to the Telegraph. 2 plus 2 is Matic. It's also 4. Is that a coincidence? Could be. Could be a complete coincidence. But JP Morgan were reportedly bankrolling the Super League. We're now getting a story about JP Morgan potentially bankrolling Sir Jim Radcliffe's bid. On the other hand, Qatar, they've just had a World Cup. They've just had a World Cup at Christmas that never should have happened. FIFA gave them a World Cup that never should have happened. They want more football. What would the long-term plan be for Manchester United? Would it be to be playing Manchester United against Liverpool in the Premier League at one of their stadiums in Qatar? Is that not what a Super League's all about? So the Super League, to some people in the chat will say, well, at the end of the day, so what? The Super League's inevitable anyway. And then I come back to, what power do we have anyway? We're sat here going, Sir Jim, Qatar, what do we want? We can all say, what do we want? But we don't get asked about what we want. Ultimately, Sir Jim offers 5 billion, Qatar offers 6 billion. Come on down, Qatar's the new owners of Man United. If they can get through the regulations as well, because let's not forget, at some point the Premier League and everyone else is going to moan their arse off about us being out. It's fine for Man City to be owned by wealthy owners. It's fine for Newcastle, but the minute a Man United or a Liverpool or an Arsenal get bought or try to get bought by wealthy owners, oh no, regulations, you can't do that. Can you call Jack Costello a prat? It's his birthday, says Dammy. And how does one even start evaluating the motives of a potential owner? Isn't it just like tossing a coin between the richest options at this point, says Div? And I don't think you're wrong, mate. I don't think you're wrong. I find it funny when I look at the poll and see 77% of people would prefer Qatar over Sir Jim Radcliffe. But I think if I walked around Manchester and got Adam to just poll people, I think it would be the other way round. I think, and I've got no issue with that, by the way. I just think it's very predictable. I think the vast majority of the global fan base probably want Qatar because they just want us to be wealthy. And I think the local fan base really like the idea of a local lad who's a billionaire and a fan of the club owning the club. And you can't knock either of those. And I hate the division. I hate division in the fan base, but there is division in the fan base on this. But, you know, Adam could say to the guy on the street in Manchester, why do you want Sir Jim Radcliffe? Well, he's a local lad. He supports the club. Okay, he's been bankrolled by JP Morgan. It could involve debts. He probably hasn't got that much money when he buys Man United to invest in the team, the stadium, etc., like that. Well, he's a local lad, isn't he? You know, and that probably is the whole point of it. He's a local lad and he supports the team. You could speak to the fan who wants Qatar. They're super wealthy. We'll have a super stadium. We'll buy Mbappe. You know, this, that, and the other. But you might end up in a Super League within 2 years. Man United won't even be playing in that stadium. They'll be playing all around the world. There'll be no Premier League. You know, remember the Busby Babes? Remember the European Cup and how important it is to... We're back. Sorry about that. I just had to pause for a minute there. The internet dropped. It's a live show. These things can happen. But we're back up and running there. Under the financial rules, we can't take the full advantage of the riches. We just need an owner that will come and make United self-sustainable, says David. Qatar can rebuild stadium. Let's be practical here. If Man United fans hate Qatar so much, then stop broadcasting. What kind of selective morality is this, says Vengeance. I would like to see the business proposal for the next 5 years for all bidders before I hang my hat on any of them, says Charlie Max. And I agree with that, Charlie. And unfortunately, that's not something that we as fans of this football club are going to get. We're just not going to get it, are we? And the Glazers will. And I would say this as well. When all these bids come in for Man United, right? What do you think the most important thing, and this is really important to consider, whether you want Sir Jim Radcliffe, whether you want Qatar, whether you want America, whether you want Apple, whether you don't know, imagine this. All those bids are coming in for Man United. If it was me receiving those bids, I would be going through it, asking questions about what you're going to do about the stadium, what's your plan for the team, the structure, the 5-year plan. I want to know all of that, right? The Glazers, that won't even matter. All they'll be looking at is how much they can get. How much more can we get? They won't care about what the plan is for Man United afterwards. They won't care about whether the new owner is going to take dividends, build the best stadium in the world. All they care about is what price they can get, and that in a sense is quite scary, because the best owner of Man United might not get hold of us. I guarantee there's somebody that would be a brilliant owner for us that won't get hold of us because they won't have the bid that the Glazers want. And that in itself is scary, because we're not in a process where we've got any power at all in our football club. And that's something where you go back to the Super League, and I think it's really important, whether it's 50+1 or fan ownership. It's a bloody disgrace that the biggest club in the world, in my opinion, one of the greatest football clubs in the world, with one of the greatest fan bases in the world, has zero power in who our next owners are going to be, because basically it's just being auctioned off to the highest bidder to make the Glazers rich. Jack, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much. We can't play PSG, but what about Nice? Says Jude. Yeah, I don't know how that works. No one ever talks about that. That's a great point. I mean, I might be missing something there, but why is it such a big deal that we can't be bought by Saudi Arabia because they own PSG, and yet Sir Jim Radcliffe owns Nice? So how does that? PSG and Nice are both in the French league. Man United's in the Premier League. So I don't know how that works. Jack says, my 21st today, and what better way to celebrate than to become a member? Thanks to all the United Stand community and team, says Jack. Thank you, Jack. Hope you have a fantastic day as well. Really appreciate that. Merry Christmas, as I nearly said. Happy birthday. There was something here I just wanted to read from Emily. She says, the divided fan base shows you and shows that you and support the team, and always has been very different opinions on what direction the club should go in. Well, everybody's going to have a different opinion. I've got no problem with that at all. As long as people respect the fact that people will have different opinions to them, I don't think you can go far wrong. I think to me, there's not enough evidence out there as to what's going to be best for us, but we'll see. There's a lot of stuff coming out at the moment, but like I say, there's a lot of regurgitation, which means there's a lot of repeats. There's a lot of people just repeating the same old stuff. There's certain people who are quite well tapped in on this, who aren't the normal people, and there's certain people who are just, basically adding the same old story that we knew last night. As I said, last night, bidding war was a bit the sort of headline. We're a week out. Where we are this morning, if you speak to the people who are, pretty well tapped in on this story, where we are this morning is it's Sir Jim Radcliffe against Qatar, and all this stuff is coming out about Sir Jim, being bankrolled by American financial institutions, one of which was involved in bankrolling the Super League. So, there's red flags. But there's red flags with the Qatar bid as well, let's be honest. Strong reports that Qatar want Liverpool, says Max. Well, Liverpool are up for sale as well. I think Liverpool want investment as well. So, I think the worst. Look, before we move on, I think the worst situation. I've always said I'm not saying what I want, but what I've always wanted is Manchester United owned by wealthy people who care about the club and want to own the club for the next 30 years and make us the best club in the world. I don't want people to come in investing, looking to sell us in 5 years. I want people to come in who want Manchester United, whether it's as fans or they want to own Man United because of its status. They want to own Manchester United, to rebuild the stadium, make it one of the best in the world, to make that team one of the best in the world, and make Manchester United one of the best in the world again. That's all I want, and that will cost money. And that's what I want. That's what I want. That's the sort of owner I want. Wealthy owners who are not worried about repayments or living off our own means. We need an injection of money. What I fear is somebody who comes into the club and goes, look, Man United's self-sustainable. That's my mission. We don't want to be owned like Man City or Newcastle. We want to be self-sufficient. We want the fans to run this football club. with their own money. You know, that's the moral way that Man United should be, because Manchester United's a moral football club and we want to be run off our own revenues, and that's what we want to do. I actually don't want that. As much as it sounds great, I don't want it. And it might sound controversial, but I don't want it because it won't work. We can't run off our own revenue. It's too late. 17 years of using that revenue on debt and dividends, we've missed the boat on that. Could have done it in 2003. We could have been self-sufficient and just run our club on our revenue and rebuild the stadium and everything. 17 years, too much money's gone out of that football club. You can't run Man United now and be competitive off our revenue. You can't. Like, even if we sort the wage bill out, our profit margins each season is probably two to 300 million quid. And that's if we're doing well over the next few years. £200 to £300 million profit if we're lucky in 3 years' time. That's not going to build you a stadium. It's not going to build you a stadium. And it's probably not going to be enough to help Ten Hag rebuild a team that still needs a lot of work. I'm sorry, in my opinion, this whole dream fantasy of that football club running on itself is a recipe for failure. We need somebody to come in with money and invest in the club. And people talk about financial fair play. If I own Man United, obviously I can't spend £1 billion on Mbappe this summer because I'll absolutely send the club into all sorts of trouble with financial fair play. But I can spend £5 billion on a new stadium if I want to. No one can stop me doing that. I can spend £1 billion on infrastructure, making us have the best, technology, fitness department, training facilities. No one can stop me doing that because it's not applicable to financial fair play. And we need billions spending on stadia and infrastructure. Well, who's going to spend that if we're relying on profit of £200 million a year? It's not just about signing Mbappe. It's about the wider picture that's been left to decay and rot. Manchester United need billions spending on off-the-pitch activity. You can't do that if you're going to try and do it off £200 million profit a year, and you've got to use that for signings as well. I'm worried. Look what they're doing with golf, the PJ, says Brian, and it's so blatantly obvious Sir Jim doesn't have the funds, says Minna. Look, I think some people are being a bit unfair on Sir Jim Radcliffe, because as much as we don't know what Qatari's intentions are, you don't know what Sir Jim's intentions are as well. He could be the right owner for Man United, but for some reason people seem to be, dismissing him as, some sort of poor English dividend loan person. You can loan money and be successful. You can borrow money and be successful. We don't know that. I just think that there are a few red flags with that, and there's a few red flags with the Qatar bid, and at the moment it looks like it's one or the other. Red Smith has gifted 5 memberships. Thank you very much, pal. Hope you have a great day. There's no right or wrong answer on this, really. Everybody will have an opinion on it. Everybody is entitled to have an opinion on it, but there's not really a right or wrong answer. But the story's moved on. That's what I want to say before we move on. The story has moved on. There is not a bidding war going on. There are not 5 bids going in. That was last night's story. Where we are this morning is that it's very much about, and let's be completely honest, if I am honest, and I think Laurie Whitwell sort of hinted at it, and there's certainly a few other journalists who are talking about it. If I'm absolutely honest, the favourites to buy Man United at the moment are quite clearly Qatar. Whether they can create a system where they can do that, and whether they're going to take 100% or investment, that's up for grabs. But they are definitely the favourites at the moment, because the wealth they have and the acquisition of something like Man United in an area that wants to get into football is a huge opportunity, and they are clearly looking at ways that they can distance themselves from PSG and be independent enough to buy Man United. And I'd say at the moment they are the favourites to buy Manchester United with Sir Jim Radcliffe, and that's where we're at the moment. I don't think there's a silent bidder there that's got more money than anybody else, because I think they would be public. I think there is an American consortium, and I think they have got money, but I think that consortium is probably about investment, and that's why they're staying quiet. I'll say this. There's 2 public bidders at the moment who, for whatever reason, are happy for that to be out there. Qatar, Sir Jim. They're the public bidders. If there's 3 quiet bidders, why are they being quiet? That's all I would say. Why are they quiet? Why are they not happy for their information to be out there publicly? and you're in the court of public opinion there. If someone's quietly bidding for Man United, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Look, it might be because they're a bit shy, and but they really love United and they want to make us the best club in the world. It could be because they're a group of investors who want to make money out of Man United in the long term, and they don't want that public knowledge out there because they'd rather get hold of us and then face the backlash rather than have the backlash before they get hold of us, because then it could be too, it could impact on it. I hope regardless of who takes us over, we don't turn into a super team like PSG. I hope we stick to buying what we need instead of just superstars, says It's a Duck. Mate, one positive about Sir Jim Radcliffe is that you wouldn't lose the identity of what the football club is. One risk about being taken over by super wealth is, do they know what Man United's all about youth? Do they know what Man United's all about Sir Matt Busby, the Busby Babes, the story? Do you sell your soul for wealth? That is a very important conversation. That is very important. We don't want to lose that, but we don't. We'll have to wait and see. I think it's time to move on, but it's certainly a very compelling conversation that almost becomes a bit monotonous. I must be honest. I woke up this morning and I was like, is there not something about a signing or something like that? Because look, I know the story's moved on, but you almost end up coming back to the same thing. You either want this, you don't want that, or you want that, you don't want this, or you're like me and you're going, how can I pick? I don't know what the 5-year plan is. I don't know whether they're going to try and take us in the Super League. I don't know whether he's being bankrolled by that financial institution because they want the Super League. He is a fan. He knows what the club's all about. He'll know about the youth. He'll know about the Busby Babes. He'll know about, protecting our heritage whilst making us one of the biggest clubs in the world. They will give us super wealth. They will give us superpower. They will be obsessed with making us the biggest thing in the world. But what's the long-term plan? There's so many if, buts and maybes. And I think fans will have... I don't think that, what I will say is I don't think that when the Glazers go, we can all put our slippers on and, go and have a hobnob in front of the fire and pretend and retire. There will be battles ahead. There will be things that happen that even the greatest owner might make a mistake on. I mean, imagine you get the owner you want and then he tries and takes us into the Super League. There will be protests. That owner will not be popular. Let's not forget that just because the Glazers are gone, if they go, doesn't mean that's it, great forever. Name me an owner of a football club that doesn't get criticised. There will be criticism, and it won't all be over because we get a new owner. There will still be things. Bog says, Heart says Radcliffe, but Head says Qatar. I can sort of see what you're talking about there. What's the point of having wealthy owners and we still spend £90 million on players rather than buying 3 players with that amount, says Ladios? And I think that's a great point. It's probably, again, we will never have any say on it, but how important is it that we have owners that clean house? Imagine we get owners who keep the same board and keep the same recruitment team. That's an important factor, but it won't be to the Glazers. But that to me, if somebody said to me now, Sir Jim Radcliffe is going to get rid of the board and the recruitment team and bring in Ralph Rangnick as director of football and this, that and the other, but Qatar are going to keep the same recruitment team and the same board, I'd go with Sir Jim. I would, because I actually think that's really important. I think it's really important to clear house above Ten Hag and bring in the best, because the last 10 years it's just been a shambles. That is a consideration. So, but we don't know what their plan is. It might be Sir Jim who wants to keep Richard Arnold and everyone in place. Let's not forget, I think Richard Arnold used to work at JP Morgan and now they're bankrolling Sir Jim. Maybe Sir Jim's going to bring Ed Woodward back. You don't know. They're great. They're great topics, but we have no power and we have no knowledge. So voting for either is just ridiculous. JP Morgan were going to bankroll the Super League. I'm pretty sure Ed Woodward helped the Glazers buy Manchester United, and he was working at JP Morgan with Richard Arnold and Matt Judge. So does that mean that if Sir Jim's getting bankrolled by, say, JP Morgan, we could see Ed Woodward back and we're going into a Super League. I don't, it could be 2 + 2 is 4. It could be 2 + 2 is Matic. It could be 2 + 2 is, 10. It's all speculation because we don't have the knowledge. And it's not unfair to have those conversations because we're being kept in the dark like mushrooms. We're not being given any info. So you don't know what you're voting for. You might be a turkey voting for Christmas. You just don't know what you're voting for, and that's why I'm not going to vote. Devil you know is better than the devil you don't, says there. Sometimes it is, especially when you're voting between two evils. People don't realise JP Morgan have a horrible history going back a century, says Manchester United. And hi Mark, what is the point getting new owners if we keep the same direction, says Kim. Exactly. And Nick P says my heart and head says nothing until we see their plans and financials. Janet from Solihull angrily discussing the pitfalls of a consortium on Twitter isn't going to cut it right now. And I think that's a very intelligent point, Nick. It really is. Anyway, let's bring it back to football. We've got Eric Ten Hag's press conference coming in at, I think it's 12:30 today. So we'll be alive. Hopefully. But we will be live at about 11:45 reacting to that. I think the big thing to come out of that is whether we're going to get any injury updates. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about the preview because we've got a video coming for you later on about the preview and how, some interesting ideas I've got on how we should line up. So watch out for that later today. I think it's a bit controversial, but sod it. It's what I think, and it's what I've been thinking since the draw with Leeds. But I'd be very surprised if Wout Weghorst starts against Leeds. Few stories and comments I've read in the last 24 hours. Mohammed, thank you very much for the super chat. I'm interested to see what people say in the chat about Weghorst because I like Weghorst. I think he's a likeable guy. He's a hard worker. He's limited. He's not a top 4 player. He's been thrown at the deep end and being asked to learn to swim in one of the most pressure environments in the world. Look, playing for Man United, whether we're winning trophies or not, is pressure. It's more pressure than... Imagine Brentford were top of the league and we were mid-table. It would still be more pressure to play for Man United because Man United's got a bigger stadium, bigger expectation, bigger crowd, bigger history. It is one of the hardest things to do to play for Manchester United because it's the same as playing for Real Madrid or Barcelona or a massive club. The aura of the place, it consumes you. And we saw Dubravka playing in goal, didn't we? And he was miskicking the ball and all sorts. He just completely lost it. So it's a big ask to chuck a player, and you can understand why he took the opportunity with both hands, but it's a big ask for a player like Weghorst, who's basically a Wolfsburg and Burnley striker, to come into Man United and be our saviour because Martial's unfit. And I think he has struggled. We don't play to his strengths. He's not really a baller in the sense he can't really hold it up, link up the play. He's not particularly quick. And I think in the last couple of days, we've seen the limitations of Weghorst to an extent that we're a better team when he goes off, as we saw against Leeds, but I think we saw it against Crystal Palace as well. We're a better team with him off the pitch, with Rashford down the middle. And I think we're a better team with Rashford off the left, so it's a bit of a problem. But I don't think he'll start Weghorst against Leeds. He might do, but I think there is a bit of a problem with Weghorst in the sense that we need to very, very quickly find him a place in that team that's valuable. Now, that might be a bench option for the last 25 minutes. And I've seen people say that, but the thing is, obviously Weghorst should have been subbed against Leeds and we were better when he went off. But if you start bringing him on for the last 20 minutes, do we become a weaker team again, like we were in the last 60? We've got to find a role. And I think to find a role, to be fair to the player, you've got to play to his strengths. I've seen David De Gea, Harry Maguire, Alessandro Martinez whacking 50-yard balls that are good balls. They're there to go and win balls for a 6'6" striker. And someone like Guehi will come in behind him who's not as big and win it, because he's more powerful and he's better in the air. That clearly is not Weghorst's strength. Even though he's 6'6", balls up for him to hold it up, he ain't very good at it. He's not particularly quick. He will press from the front, but he's not particularly quick, but he will run around and he will press. He can have the ball to feet and he can lay it off, but he's not the sort of person who's going to magnetically take a touch, spin and knock a ball in behind to Rashford to run onto. That's not what he's going to do. So what he is good at is in the box. So we've got to be putting balls into the box quicker. Are we going to start doing that? But I feel sorry for Weghorst because I think he's willing Weghorst, but I don't think we're playing anywhere near to his strengths. And I think even if we bench him on Sunday and bring him on for the last 20 minutes, will we become a worse team with him on the pitch? And that's harsh but true. We were worse with him on the pitch against Palace and Leeds, and when he went off we were better. If you're going to use him as a 20-minute option at the end of the game, we might become worse. And ultimately, the way to solve this is we've got to play to his strengths. If he's coming on for the last 20 minutes, we've got to change. We've got to start getting the ball wide and putting the crosses into the box quicker. If we're going to keep playing the same way, we're going to struggle. And I think that's potentially the mistake we made against Leeds as well, where I personally think we should have played with one holding midfielder instead of trying to play with two and getting them to share the load. And I know playing with a Martinez or a Lindelof as CDM is a risk, but at least the system would have been familiar in the midfield to everyone. Could you imagine Liverpool get Qatar and United get Dubai, says Max? Be a very competitive future. Thoughts on playing in-form Barcelona without Martinez and Sabitzer, says Mohammed. Matt, welcome to the Members Club, and Jordan as well. Why can't Sabitzer play against Barcelona? Robert Blake says all bids will be financed. I'd be stunned, Robert, if a bid from Qatar is financed by JP Morgan. I can't. Even saying those words make me laugh. There ain't no way any Middle East bid is going to be financed by an American institution, finance institution. They've got the wealth. Why would they do that? Is Newcastle financed? Is Man City financed? Is PSG financed? They're financed by the Saudi Arabian Wealth Fund or Qatari Sports Investment. They won't be financed by JP Morgan on a high interest repayment. I mean, some of the interest rates at the moment on loan is ridiculous. So not all bids will be financed, I'm afraid. Some of them will, but not all of them will. I think Sabitzer can play. Martinez can't. Yeah, a lot of people are saying that. I mean, God, if we didn't... We'll have Casemiro against Barcelona, though. But Martinez will miss the first game in the new camp. I can't wait for that game. You know, we're 6 days away from playing Barcelona. I can't wait. But obviously we've got to play Leeds first. And, you know, I think that's going to be an interesting game. I was out last night. That's why I did the 8 o'clock show at 7 o'clock. But I think we are where I'd like to see us play Shaw and Varane against a Barcelona savage. I completely agree. I think that's the way to go. I wouldn't be using Maguire against Barcelona. I mean, that's, you know, you don't play Harry Maguire against a tiki-taka quick team, do you? You know, you don't play a tall, slow player against Barcelona in the new camp. So I think Shaw and Varane is 100% the way to go, like Joe says. But I do think we're in a situation now where we're sort of moving into the area some of us predicted was the fear. We mentioned it at the start of the season, we mentioned it during the World Cup, and we mentioned it at Christmas, and we mentioned it in January. You cannot play 3 games a week for 7, 8, 9, 10 months and not get tired and injury. And I think we are about to hit a period that is going to be pivotal to our season. I'm talking about Leeds at the weekend, Barcelona twice, Leicester in between, the Carabao Cup, West Ham in the FA Cup, and Liverpool at Anfield. The next few games will define our season. You've got Leeds in the Premier League, Barcelona in the Europa League, Leicester in the Premier League, Barcelona in the Europa League, Carabao Cup final against Newcastle, FA Cup against West Ham, Liverpool in the Premier League away. Those next 7 games define our season. And after Liverpool, we'll either be comfortably in the top 4 or in trouble in the top 4. We'll either be in the FA Cup or out the FA Cup. We'll either have lost the Carabao Cup final or won it, and we'll either be in the Europa League or we won't be. The 4 tournaments. Where do you think we'll be after that Liverpool game? I think we'll be fighting for 4th, and we'll have won the Carabao Cup, and we'll be out the FA Cup, and we'll be out the Europa League. That's where I think we'll be. Because I think we look tired, and I think there is no rest, and I think it's just not sustainable against teams that are going to be more fresh than us. So I think we'll be fighting for fourth and in one cup, or won one cup after that Liverpool game. I think the Newcastle final is going to be very, very difficult. Playing Thursday night and then playing Sunday afternoon when they've had a week off and they're a good side, that's going to be very difficult. Barcelona are going to be very, very difficult. And the league at the moment, I'd fancy us to beat Leicester at home, and I'd fancy us to get something at Leeds and Liverpool, but I just think how tired the team is. The Premier League is so competitive that it's difficult. But look, it's going to be fascinating to watch, and I for one can't wait to watch all these games now, because there's no deadwood, is there? There's no Reading at home in the FA Cup. Every game we've got in the next 7 has something on it. Leeds away, Barcelona twice, even Leicester at home. You know, that's probably the most winnable game, but you know, they've just been and won at Villa. They don't play in Europe. They'll have had a week off. They'll be fresh. Liverpool away, West Ham in the Cup, and then the Carabao Cup at Wembley. So every game's got something on it. Nightmare scenario now is that we lose the League Cup final, go deep in the FA Cup and Europa, win nothing, but as a result also drop out of the top 4, says McElvis. I think we need to wrap Casemiro, Marcus Rashford and Bruno Fernandes up in cotton wool and just hope that they stay fit. I think those 3 players are so fundamental to what we're trying to achieve. I think the Newcastle game will be very hard, Marcus. I really want to win it, but every game is a final now, says Lisa. I think that's true. But Yadvir makes a great point. There's literally no game we can rotate and rest anybody at the moment. And that's the interesting thing for me. I was thinking about this the other day, and I was like, you know, at some point it might not be a bad idea to pick Harry Maguire or McTominay when he's fit, or give Elanga a run out. And people will be going, what are you on about? Are you drunk in the morning? And I'm not. It's not that I'm drunk in the morning. It's just that it would be nice to be in a situation where you could throw Maguire, Elanga and McTominay in and really rest 5 or 6 players. But I'm not saying that, you know what I mean? Like, if you're playing Maguire and you're playing Elanga and you're playing McTominay, you're not just resting Varane and Martinez. You're probably resting... You're not just resting one of them. You're probably resting both of them because you play Lindelof as well. But I can't see a game where we can do that anymore. You're not going to play Maguire against Barcelona. You're not going to play McTominay in the Carabao Cup final, or Leeds away. So I mean, Leicester at home, who are fighting for survival. Would you try and make changes there? We've got to try and mix it up, because otherwise you're playing Varane and Martinez every game of those 7, playing every 3 days. You've got to find ways to rotate, but tell me where you rotate. I think Leicester at home, in between the 2 Barcelona games, is one I'd be looking at, because you're playing Thursday, Sunday, but it's a risk. I think that's the one for me. I think Leicester at home is the one where you've got to try and rotate a little bit, especially because the Barcelona second leg will be so important, and then you've got the Carabao Cup straight after it, and then maybe West Ham in the Cup as well. We might have to do it there as well. If we beat Barcelona, we have to win the Europa League, says Joe. The Europa League as well. I know we're not talking about the Europa League, but the Europa League, I know Barcelona's a glamour tie, but we shouldn't even be playing. Sociedad aren't even playing because they topped the group. This glamour tie with Barcelona, we shouldn't even be playing. We should be off. Imagine that. Because we didn't top our Europa League group, we've got to play this sort of qualifier for the knockout stage of the Europa League, where you play the Champions League third place teams against the second place Europa League teams. If we'd topped our group, we wouldn't be playing next week or the week after. We'd have a week off between Leeds and Leicester, and then Leicester in the cup final. So as much as the Barcelona game is great and it's glamorous, it's actually a bit of a qualifier. And then if you win that, you've still got to play 2 games, quarter-final, semi-final, final. Seven more games after beating Barcelona. So people say, well, if we beat Barcelona, we've got to go and win it. You've still got 7 more games to play after that, and there are a few teams in there that aren't that bad. So yeah, the stupid handball on Martinez, Bramble, exactly. That's what caused the problem. But yeah, look, you know, as Ten Hag would quite rightly say, we want to win every game. You just got to get on with it. But we could have done with those 2 weeks off. We really, really could have done. We might need to give up on the Europa League. We'll not give up on anything, Ryan. We'll keep going. It might destroy us having to play all these games, but yeah, we'll definitely keep on going. Just having to see if there's anything new coming out. Been a bit of it's a story here that from The Sun, Neil Custis in The Sun, saying that Erik ten Hag is considering ditching Wout Weghorst for the game against Leeds on Sunday. I think he's got to. I think he has to, because we play better without him, and we're playing away from home. And look, I'm going to preview the Leeds game later. We'll get the press conference and then we'll get the preview out later. But I think that Leeds played well enough at Old Trafford on Wednesday night for us to know that Ellen Road, if you're a Leeds fan and the Premier League fixtures come out, this is their number one. Man United at Ellen Road is their biggest game of the season. So that Leeds team played well at Old Trafford. Imagine how up for it they're going to be with a crowd desperate to beat us. I think it's going to be that game, if you're predicting a win against Leeds on Sunday, well done. I think that would be a very impressive win if we win there. That's going to be very, very difficult because there's no Casemiro again. Martial won't be back. Maybe Anthony's back, but they will be up for it. They are energetic. The crowd will be up for it. It's going to be a very, very difficult game. I'm looking forward to it. In some ways, I'm like, if someone said that's a draw, I mean, it's not a great result, but it might not be a bad result in the context of how difficult that game's going to be. DBT says it's going to be an easy win. Your standards have dropped. Yeah, easy win on Wednesday, wasn't it? Perfect. Anyway, look, thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you smash a like on the video. We are back very, very soon, because if I was to tell you some slow sports news, or maybe breaking news to you if you do not know, but Manchester United are playing Leeds United at the weekend, and the press conference is actually at 1:30. It's not 12:30. That's according to MUTV. Manchester United, Erik ten Hag will be giving his Manchester United press conference at 1:30 today. So we'll be live at 1:45, unless it gets moved. It's normally at 12:30, so that might get moved. But keep an eye out for that, and we'll speak to you then. Thanks everyone for watching. Smash a like on the video. Make sure you subscribe, and I'll speak to you all in a bit.